Welcome to episode 8 of Talking Trees, the Climbing Arborist podcast. This evening I'm joined once again by Aidon Pyne. You must be doing something right to be invited a second time, Aidon.
Thanks for saying so.
And we're also joined, which I'm pretty excited about, by is Ryan Senechal, which luckily we've been attending a conference this week, and so Ryan's come across from Vancouver Island, so it means he's in town and he can join us on a podcast. So
I hope to not disappoint.
How could you?
Maybe I can get invited back like Aidon.
You got to
must have done good.
Put on a good performance.
Oh, thanks. I've got more to talk about.
Yeah. Anybody wanna start off with a topic, Ryan?
Sure. We're all here in Vancouver for IUFC, the Internationl Urban Foresty Congress, 2018 edition. It's actually a few different groups coming together. PNW ISA, the UBC Urban Tree Diversity Conference, I believe, and then the Tree Canada conference as well. So there's a lot of people around. A lot of great speakers in town. A lot of people talking trees. So it's a highlight.
Yeah.
Conference always is great for bringing the tree tribe together, I guess. And yeah.
Couldn't agree more. And location specifically, having us all in Van City's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of get to a beautiful park like Stanley, for example, but also a lot of people with maybe different viewpoints on forestry, urban forestry, arboriculture operations is a good melting pot of different viewpoints on what our common thread is, but really coming at it from maybe different, even planners and academics, and it's awesome to hear things from a different angle. Yeah, I think.
Totally. Yeah, I think coming into this, I could lump it into sort of the whole ISA certified arborist thing, and how different people have different opinions about it, and how it sort of exists as a benchmark qualification, just that we're all communicating with each other on trees similarly, but having the opportunity to actually spend time with people that are in these peripheral trades and like having that actual exchange is pretty valuable, and you realize how you are, you're a team, and if you're in it like probably the three of us are, and a lot of people I know, for the trees. You love trees, you love outdoors, and you want to see more trees and more people connecting with trees. Then you start to realize in a hurry, having conversations with these people that are outside of our climbing group, that those values are shared, and we can do great things if we work together. But one of the things I struggled with, I guess, coming into this course, because my heart is definitely in climbing and in operations, but my interest is perhaps in the urban forestry and academia, the research that's coming about, both on the ecology side, but also the social side, is how we move forward at this point. Really, we struggle to make those leaps, and we get a little too focused in our own little camps at times. And just looking at the overall content at this conference, I think the PNW ISA chapter in particular, you're trying to represent all those values between those different groups, but I just didn't see a whole lot on the operation side. There's not a lot in the programming for people on the tools. Maybe I don't need that, but there are certainly things I'm interested in the conference. But they didn't throw a lot of bones in the direction of the climbing arborist, and there's lots we could be talking about. Certainly on the equipment that is advancing faster than we can possibly train for it.
Yeah.
Speaking of training, occupational health and safety. We just had another fatal incident in the area last week, right? So there's, we should be, and perhaps it's that people in our camp aren't putting themselves forward. There was a call for abstracts for this program. Did anybody? And I'm guilty. I didn't put anything in this year, but we got to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
We need to make sure our interests are represented at the conference, so that people that are beginning their career as climbers have something for them too. Because maybe that urban forestry stuff and the research is not quite within reach. They can't necessarily use it just yet, and maybe they're not interested in it just yet. But I'm trying to be positive about it and think, well, maybe you and me should next conference.
Right.
Between the three of us, some of us needs to put something
put
in
our
there.
heads together and come up with something. So I, going back to your point about the conference, because it's the PNW have kind of like joined or teamed up with this year being the Urban Forestry Conference. It's definitely heavily orientated around urban forestry, and so like a lot of the topics seem to be more like, if you were to manage a whole city full of trees, rather than being more specific in arboriculture, where you're day to day aiming at managing one tree. So then the talks go into like maybe into the specifics of pruning, whereas at the urban forestry this year there seems to be less. It's not as focused. It's more on like management kind of thing, and
it's very big picture.
and I kind of feel the same in that I would take more. I don't know, take more in if it was like more specific, whereas it's hard because I don't work in like the municipal sector, and I find it hard to take it in as much as I have done in previous conferences. But I wonder if it'd be interesting to ask a few people if they had submitted any proposals, to see if they just didn't get selected because it was more urban forestry, or if they just there wasn't any to choose from, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's pretty clear there's a theme that they're pushing, but it would be consistent with the trends I've seen in availability of training at the operations level. So I think there's a better chance that it is. There's just not a lot of people contributing content at this point.
Yeah.
It's not a conference thing. It's just like, look at what's available for the working arborist right now. But totally, a lot of it is targeted at municipal foresters, planners, landscape architects, people in positions to do maybe make some bigger plays in the city context or on larger properties, or in government.
Definitely.
And
we have a role in that, right? I mean, we're not.
We do.
We're not maybe at the top of those umbrellas, but we both of us being in a municipal role are seeing that a little more. And maybe our guiding documents from our municipalities, and maybe a little more we can see contractors and see the larger picture if we see a little bit of it, where Dan isn't privy to some of that, right? But I guess what I'm saying is I see some of these larger ideas and lofty ideas and larger diversity issues and sustainability issues, and I see them in the planning world, and the city pulls all that together. That's not my role. I am operations in the city, but I see it happening a bit, so it makes a bit more sense, though I can tie the threads together.
I think you said earlier too, and I would totally agree, early in my career I would have been interested in that content, because it's a world I'm not familiar with. It's good to expose yourself to that, and I think we need to emphasize that for people that are maybe looking at the program and like, that all looks very boring, but all that stuff is where the world is going.
Totally.
And maybe the ISA conference of the future doesn't have an operations element. Maybe that's something else altogether, but it's still super important for me to be here. One, for the people, like the conversations outside of that room are always catching up on life and what people have got going on for their own projects. But you just learn so much from it, and it just builds your own little network of roots out in the community, and that can bring opportunities. But it just makes you a better arborist.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah,
you learn things through networking and talking to people in the breaks, lunch break, whatever, and just somebody might mention one thing which will spark a conversation, and then it'll draw a couple of other people in that maybe you haven't met before, and then somebody might mention, I'm going to see so-and-so's talk because of this reason, and then it might sway you to go and see a talk which you hadn't meant to go and see, but
did you see that Suzanne Simard presentation, the keynote first thing?
Yeah.
If you haven't seen her speak before, she's got plenty of stuff up on YouTube, and she's been featured on podcasts and so on. But one of the things, kind of the key takeaway that really applies to the social side is the fungal links throughout the forest, and the studies they've done on smaller plots, but the connectivity across species, between trees, different age trees, and how quickly those links form and how it builds resilience. I mean, just using that as a metaphor for the people at the conference, it's like bang.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's true. You have way more opportunity, and you're going to excel in your career, and sustainably. I don't like to use that word lightly, but you're going to really stratify your position in industry by having more people out there that you can connect and engage with.
Yeah. It's funny that I just think we all like to learn more about what we already know. It's almost like you want to go to an operations and talk about tools, but come on, you're an expert. As far as experts go, you're there, right? And it's like, we hear the same thing so many times. I'd go to a talk on tree wells, and I'd be like, yeah, that's fine, that's my jam. And tell me again all the benefits. I know them, but tell me again, But maybe it's that part of us that we read the titles and we think like, ooh, climate change, sustainability, and these key words that are used or whatever. But you go and you take in nuggets of it, but it's just not our go-to or our real passion. I'm passionate about it, but I guess it's not the thing I'm really knowledgeable about. And I don't know why I want to learn more about the things I'm already really knowledgeable about, but I almost gravitate to that because I feel comfortable there.
Yeah.
But when I hear academics talking about things like, it's not abstract, because we can understand that climate change is happening, tree species may be affected. That's obvious. These are simple, but it's not our day-to-day, right? But man, talk about silky saws or something, and I'm right in there, and I know as much as everyone about silky saws, but yeah, I don't know why that is. I think that's a weird thing about humans again. That's just what maybe because I want to learn more about it, but I can't implement necessarily all these high-level planning or high-level management strategies at an operations level. So it almost feels like you're giving me great knowledge, but maybe I can't, it's not turnkey. I can't implement
I can't do anything about it. Yeah.
I went to Municipal Forestry Institute, which is a fantastic opportunity. They picked some brilliant professors and academics to teach this course. It's an intensive course, and anyways, it's really geared towards municipal forestry. It's not arboriculture, it's municipal forestry. It's about lots of stuff. But I came back from that a year ago and thought, it's going to be hard to implement this stuff, and I haven't implemented a lot of it, but still is a really great knowledge to take in. And I think that's the same when I go to these conferences. I know I'm not going to be able to instill or change or implement that immediately, but you take it in to make yourself a well-rounded arborist. You take it in to make yourself a well-rounded citizen, to become more knowledgeable about what the research they're working on and maybe up-and-coming trends or issues. And, there's climate change, for example. We know it's coming, but I like it when they give me some today's I saw a good talk on some climate change modeling to say, here's some temperatures that we're estimating for 2100, the year 2100, and this is simple of these trees will not be here in 2100. At the operations level, I kind of get that because I need to work on those trees. I won't be around then, I don't think, but we need to work on trees, and that's a tangible. I could see okay, that's important, but sometimes it's hard to connect the dots. But I guess what I'm saying is that it's funny that we gravitate to things we already know, and the unknown makes us a little uncomfortable, but that's the stuff that we just got to suck up. We got to take it in, and then who knows where 5 years from now, your career says, actually, that is the direction you're going, and that was the seed that was planted, and you chase it. But right now, it's a little abstract, and it's a little like, I'm not a PhD, and what Kathleen Wolf's talking about, I get it, but I'm not involved in healthcare and the socioeconomic benefits of trees. But I kind of do get that we all feel better after forest bathing, like they say, or whatever, right? So I connect some dots from these conferences. This Congress is a bigger one, but I always go to the ISA. I always try to go to it, and I haven't been in a few years. But I always find that I'm trying to link, because they're not all operations. That's easy for me to get. The other ones, I try to find how they'll speak to me or connect to, I guess, what I do and what we're into. I always find these little threads, but yeah, it's not exactly just turnkey, right?
I think it's because when you already have knowledge about a certain subject, so say if we talk about operations and arboriculture, we can relate and we can converse about them. We feel like we're fairly knowledgeable, so you understand everything, whereas maybe some of these talks, it's because it's so out of what you would normally be doing, a lot of it goes over your head, and it's hard to kind of really wrap your head around, like in a short time frame when they're presenting, and so it's almost kind of, it can lose you a little bit because you're not, I don't know, maybe you're not as engaged because you're not understanding everything that's being said, whereas if it was something more specific to what we do on a daily basis, you understand almost everything. Yeah.
It is interesting. I don't know. I really am liking it so far, but there is still some things that I'm not exactly, not that I don't understand what they're talking about, but some of the pieces are pretty big research pieces, right? And I'm learning is what I'm doing. It's not something I'm going in and I know partially what they're about to talk about. I'm literally learning and trying to soak up new ideas, and maybe
it's really important that we're there, though, because one thing I recognize, like just being exposed to academics and having conversations with them, what we're seeing at the presentation level here is the end of the grant cycle. So whoever's providing these grants sees benefit in this sort of work that's going on. So ultimately this stuff is going to be on our plate, maybe not right now, but down the road as priorities, whether they're handed down to you as work orders, or whether you're a municipal arborist meeting with your contractors and spelling out work and trying to present the big picture to them. These are priorities, and this is why, because there are social benefits, because we want to broaden functionality of this space, because we want to introduce more green infrastructure, have park spaces available to people. So these are all the trends that are coming. So I'm grateful for that, and it's been awesome. One thing we were talking about before we started recording was Friday. I had a group of academics through a coworker, and I took them for their first trip into Port Renfrew to see some big trees, and just seeing their response. Like, these are all people that are doing great things in their field that haven't actually made that connection with the real deal. And seeing it relatively intact, undisturbed, old growth coastal ecosystems, and just watching it hit them.
There's a huge impact on people.
And all of them they're telling me today. It's like, that was just amazing. Like, thank you. I'm like, no, it's like somebody took me in there too, and made that connection. So it's so valuable. But being in the truck for the ride up and everything, and sharing with them and getting to understand, because I don't regularly hang out with academics and get to have those conversations about their research and what they're going on, what they're going through, and what led them to that point. But I think that's the most important part. Like, we're all in this together, and they have just as much of an interest in us as we do in them. And the more we talk, is like we get our goals faster.
And this is day one of the Congress, and it's a little not silo-y, but you can see the academics versus the operations people, and you see a little, like, we stick to our cliquey groups that we know we can have good conversations with, but maybe by the end of Wednesday, or the field trips, which they strategically put on the Wednesday, where you get to spend half a day with these groups, by then maybe we will be rubbing elbows with the academics and a little more crossover, and it could break itself open a bit more, right? Just a bit more open conversations, because it seems like right now it's almost like the operations people, we are sitting there being like, wish there was more operations. The academics are doing their.
But I find even there, like they have a fascination with climbing, and they like hanging out with climbers because that's a perspective they can't get, and working together to reach understanding. And that, you know how conferences are, you just, I mean, you know that person over there, but they know all those people, and next thing you know, like 5 years goes by, and you know all these people, and you look forward to seeing them every time, and the network just grows. Like the amount of people I've met this time already, it's just constantly, like you can't get 50 feet without having 40 conversations.
Not even 40.
It's hard to get around everybody that you see that you know, and trying to squeeze a conversation in with everybody that's...
The time goes quick.
Yeah.
I bumped into a gentleman today I haven't seen since 2006, and he was the reason I'm into trees, because I came here in 2006 with my degrees in thinking environmental science, thinking ecological restoration, couldn't find any work, and I answered an ad to Davy Resource Group, and the gentleman Davy Resource Group is now with the board of ISA, and I haven't seen him in many years, but that got me into how I got in with Davy Tree, because the resource group thing dried up. But from brain power to get on the tools to where I am now, I went up to him, I said, Ian, I haven't seen you in a long time, and he didn't recognize me because of the beard, but I said, kind of the reason I'm into trees, like I loved them before, but you need an employee, he took a shot at me, and from there I can't tell you how much I've grown. And he's asked me a question like, oh, are you still involved with trees? I said, yeah, a little bit. You know, it's like my life. But yeah, like there's people at this Congress that, because it's the three things, I think it's drawing a little larger draw, or like a little bit more diverse people. I know diverse is the key word here at this Congress, but I bumped into a few people that I was like, wow, it's awesome to see you here, and I didn't expect to, right? But those are the threads that got us into work for whatever reasons, and it was cool to bump into him, and I hope to keep seeing those people, and one day perhaps be that person to somebody else who would be like, Aidon, you're the reason, and that podcast that got me into trees, and I like that about this Congress, because it's a wide range of people there. It's pretty cool.
Well, and just, you know, I don't have a huge long career, but just in that setting, you can approach like anybody. Last night I was talking with the executive director of ISA Ontario, and Cecil from UBC Forestry. Like they're all just right there. These are like the biggest people doing the biggest things in arboriculture in our world.
Totally.
And they're right there, and they're friends of your friends, and probably soon to be friends of yours.
Totally.
Like it's pretty unique in that capacity, like when looked in any other industry, really. Yeah. It's just a lot of passionate people about trees.
And cool. Another big part of the conference that's different from any of the conferences that I've seen and that I've been to so far is tonight there's a networking like women's event in women in arboriculture, and earlier today at the conference there was like a panel discussion for women in arboriculture, which, and I know a couple of the girls that are really heavily involved, like Kaylee, she's been a real like advocate and kind of almost like spearheading the networking event that they're having tonight, and I think it's a really important thing that they're doing, because I know through speaking to Kaylee that no matter what guys are around, and no matter their personalities and their knowledge base and everything, that women feel so much more comfortable when they're among themselves, especially in a male-dominated industry, because they almost feel maybe that the men are looking down on them and they're judging them, and obviously nobody likes thinking that they're being judged. They just like to all be like equals. So I think it's a great initiative that they're having a networking event, and because it will feel like they'll probably realise that there's way more women in the industry than what it seems, because it is such a male dominated industry. When you go to the operations operations,
but boy, sure. That Congress has a lot of brains that are the females in the research side of things and making things happen behind the scenes, I think is a lot deeper than the operations side. So maybe that's the networking side. Is there's so many women, brilliant women in arboriculture, but maybe it's not so many on the tools, right? And I hope they make that connection. And there's awesome arborists on the tools like Kaylee and many others that we've met. Climbing comp just went down. I mean, it was a great show of talent and skill. But yeah, I hope that they can connect and find some common threads and talk. And I bet you all the women researchers are into climbing and would like to do Canopy research, and in the various ways that there are. But if they can inspire each other.
Yeah, and I'm sure, like these networking events that they have, they'll definitely inspire each other, and and maybe somebody who's holding back a little bit, and they really want to learn to climb either for research or they want to get into the production side of things, or the operations side, but they've been a little bit hesitant, with enough encouragement around them from other women that have already kind of blazed the trail, as it were. It will give them the confidence to do so, whereas if without these kind of women networking events, I don't know if some people would kind of make the leap almost. But
I agree, it's important, and I think I don't know how I can play any role in helping them or empowering females to be more involved, other because I'm so operationally bound, but I am encouraging many females to go after the ITA and come apply for my city, because that's exactly, you want that energy, you want various skills, and you want various people, and that would round out my team just really nicely.
I think I have a friend who employs a female arborist. He's training her from like being completely green pretty much, but he's like, it's such a breath of fresh air to have like just a different personality almost, and I don't know, maybe there's differences with like ego and that kind of thing, and he says it's just a breath of fresh air, because it's so different from having all the guys on the crew to have a different vantage point and different opinions coming from a female point of view.
I worked at Davy Tree. I worked with a fantastic female arborist who was just really talented on the tools and could get her done. So I've seen from an early age in my career, because that was really where I learned. It's fantastic. So for me, gender doesn't mean nothing. She may have been better than me at a point. I don't know, maybe still. But there's a zero that separates a man and a woman in a tree. They got all the skill, right? So I've seen it happen. But it's awesome that they network, that they reach out and feel out each other's trials and tribulations and talk about them. I bet you we could do the same. Men aren't going to do that, because we don't say men need to talk. But like I was saying, we talk all the time about the apprehensions about, say, competing, and I bet you we all go through it, but maybe we're not going to sit and say, like, do you find that challenging? Do you find that? But that it is important, and we could do that, because there's tons of people that don't compete that should, and for whatever, maybe their own reasons or whatever, but a lot of it's probably apprehensions or what do people think, We
were talking about this only the other day, that there are so many people out there that we try and encourage to compete at competitions, and for whatever reason they just, I don't know if it's pride and worry that other people might see them and judge them based on their performance in a competition or in their skills, and they're a bit hesitant to kind of take part. But I found through competitions I've grown so much as a climber, like my actual climbing ability, and even my safety at work, like through just different techniques that you do in a competition that transfer. And I think people, it'd be good to kind of talk a bit more and get through these, just not feeling pressure from anybody, and that nobody's judging anybody.
It's all self-imposed pressures, a lot of them. And I'm not saying that there's not real struggles being a woman in a male-dominated industry. That's hard, and that's a real thing, and absolutely there's tons of inroads happening, but certainly that's not something that you can just no, it's all fine, just don't worry about it. No, there's probably companies that you wouldn't want to work for as a female, but there's tons of other opportunities and tons of great people that will foster and say that's not the industry that is everywhere. That's, like we said previously and other times, the whole ego thing of arboriculture is sort of disappearing. So it's a great time for women to insert themselves and be like, without egos, it's just two people learning to climb trees together and teach each other and become better at what you may love, right? And it's like, I think that's an awesome direction we're going.
Yeah, I sat back and had a conversation with Kathy Olger shortly after this. There was a panel discussion, and I realized, part of the conversation in that panel was the question inevitably came up as a male participant in this industry, how can I support a diverse workplace and make it a better place for females to thrive?
Good question.
And we didn't have a lot of time to talk about it. They didn't have a lot of time to talk about it before the session sort of ran out of time. But kind of got me thinking. And then the story I had shared with Kathy, I realized I'd never told anybody that, and never shared it with anyone. But the reason, my origin story is probably very unusual for the industry, but maybe a vision of the future if we address a lot of these issues. But a number of my mentors along the way have been women.
Nice.
Why I am climbing at all, why I took a position was because there were women that worked as contractors where I was working as a golf course worker at the time. They were tree climbers.
Okay.
No way.
That's so amazing. It just seems like so much more of an inclusive thing when you see women doing it, and it was they were having so much fun. I'm that job looks amazing. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And a close
Ryan, just pull that microphone a bit closer
to me.
Yeah.
And then a close friend of mine, coworker, his wife had gone through the Fleming program, and we kind of talked about trees a fair bit, and I saw her climb, and that got the stoke on some more, and next thing you know, I'm climbing, and I'm even at Humber, there were a lot of women in our program. There should have been way more, mind you, and hopefully we'll get to that point. But they were 100% on par with the abilities throughout the program. There were women instructing in the program. It just was the norm. This is normal.
Yeah.
And then you leave that environment, and it's whoa, no, that's a bizarre other universe that you just lucked out
an anomaly kind of thing. Yeah.
Because you talk about everybody else's experiences, and certainly listening to experiences of women. Yeah. And you're not going to hear those experiences unless it's a safe space to talk about that. They put on their work face, and if you're not close, who knows, they might not share with you that they're experiencing bullying, or they feel that they're being refused opportunity to climb, to learn those skills and to show that they can contribute 100% as good as anyone else on the crew. And today was all about just we had a safe space. We weren't there to talk, we were there to listen. The few men that were in the room, and that was great, because they're sharing and they were not holding back. Adrina Bardekjian, I think that's how you pronounce her last name. She's doing a lot of work right now, research on the experience of women in arboriculture and urban forestry. She's doing a bunch of work across the industry, primarily in North America, on the experiences and trying to put together a body of work to inform change ultimately. And it's made a huge impact, and just the information they've already collected through the survey phase is so valuable, because you just don't, we only see what's around us, right? Now we're collecting information and aggregating it on women's experiences across a number of different fields within the context of urban forestry, arboriculture, and forestry. And like I shot a couple of slides, and I just thought it'd be good to share on what they were reporting as barriers in the workplace to them. So identified barriers, they're saying number one, and it looks like it's probably 75% of people mention this as a barrier, being a woman.
Yeah.
Gender, sexism, assault, harassment. Number two, not being taken seriously. Number three, credentials and knowledge. Down the list from there, physical strength and ability. The workplace has changed so much. Like if you're still running that kind of show where it's brute force and ignorance rules. Yeah.
So I had no appetite for that.
Yeah.
I personally, no appetite for that.
No.
And then that maybe that's part of the reason I left the private industry, but not all private industries like that. But it's way better at a municipal, where people are tasked to behave and act properly. So at my workplace, that's so far from what happens.
But this is the kind of stuff we need to talk about as men. Like, what is working for you in your workplace, and why is it a safe space, and how is that a benefit?
Yeah.
Because it's like going back to that fungal network and like resilience. Like women have brought so much enrichment into my work life. It just makes for such a better experience. You do greater things together, and it makes it's a healthy place to go to work and a fun place to go to work.
Totally.
But I'll continue down the list here because it's all important. Ageism has been a barrier. Pay.
Discrepancies in men versus women's pay.
Discrepancies in pay.
Yeah, it's unacceptable.
It's still happening. Lack of employment, education opportunities. Having to convince others or be defensive. Personal characteristics, self-reflection, fears, discrimination by the public. I've witnessed that. A woman who kind of got into trees with me, and I had mentored her along the way. We were working together as a crew one day, and we went to this job site, and I thought everything was going really well. We had a really good day. It was kind of a cool site. We were working on some arbutus, and just on this slope is really nice. But worked all day, and it was a long shift, and filled the truck. Like, we moved a lot of material that day. Anyways, we left, and by the time we got back to the yard, we'd learned that this woman, the homeowner, had called in to complain that they had sent a woman to do a man's job.
Oh, God.
Like, that kind of, it just blows your mind, right?
Yeah.
But that's what's going on. And seeing her response to that is, I was obviously floored, but it's just crushing.
Yeah, that is.
And that sort of stuff still persists. So yeah, just some advice to young women. This was good. This was golden. From the women in arboriculture, urban forestry, and forestry that participated in this survey.
Yeah.
This is what women are saying to prepare other women entering this trade. How does this sound? Stand up. Be confident. Be brave. Stay positive. Stay safe. Stay safe and stay strong. Does that sound like a safe place for women to come?
Yeah, if you took that statement and applied it to most other jobs, that wouldn't be the advice to go into a workplace.
We're not selling this, yeah.
No. Yeah, you would if your wife were to go to work and you had to say that to her.
Yeah, you think she worked at a jail.
Yeah.
Or something very.
So that was number one. That was the advice that they were sharing. The next one, pursue diverse education. Never stop learning. Words to live by.
Yeah.
Do what you love what you do, go for it, do it. Pick your battles. Have patience, have persistence, work hard. One of the things Wenda Lee said, Wenda shared her whole origin story. She was the first female climber in the city of Toronto. And this would have been in think it was early 90s, 91 or something. And she did not have a fun experience. Went into the private sector shortly after. But she just shared a cool story, and like something, if you've never worked with women that are in a comfortable space, like just recognizing like the difference in the process of just taking a piss in the chip truck.
Totally I was thinking that, and you're right. That's exactly this small pieces, but yeah, think of your day
just
as
like
a tree guy.
never mind dealing with your period, you know.
Yeah.
But like you're just never privy to that conversation, and you just
Totally.
pretend it doesn't exist if you've never been in, or if you've been in an all male work environment, right?
Yeah.
Like they've got like elaborate systems of tarps with earth magnets, and like I'd have never thought of that. But
I think there's a really cool thing out there as a bit of a segue, but there's an all women's tree firm. I think might be in Seattle. Forgive me because I'm not exactly sure, but all women, and it's a bit of a niche market. I think that's an awesome niche market. And if I was a homeowner, I don't own a home, but if I owned a home, I think I'd call them and say, "Get her done."
That's one thing.
Just let it go, and be like, "Of course you're going to do a wicked job."
Across the trades, I say like ask your contractor if they have women in the workplace.
Yeah.
Is it a safe place for women to go to work?
Yeah.
Support those businesses.
That's easy.
one
That's
one
something
way
we can do,
change.
right? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, if we think back, presumably it's a male-dominated industry because it's physical. That's what we presume?
That's a good presumption, and I think it can be a very physically demanding. We won't lie about that. This is a hard job at times, right?
But then if that's presumably why it is seen as a male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
But if anybody is a rock climber, if you ever go to a rock climbing gym, the female rock climbers have by far the best technique and can do just as much as
Absolutely.
the guys, but with more technique and better technique, because maybe they don't have the strength of some of the bigger guys that are using more like brute force.
Mm-hmm.
So their technique becomes better. And if that then applies to arboriculture, that the women in the industry apply better technique to be able to do the same jobs as the guy, then surely that's a better thing.
We'll be out of jobs soon enough.
I think this whole physicality gets way more energy than it should. One of the other things Wenda said today was like, across my entire career, I've had to work 100% of the time, just to show like you can't be vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Because people leap all over that. Meanwhile, any other guy on the crew can show up
taking a
and
back
like
seat.
hungover.
Yeah.
And
Hungover,
do
exactly.
shitty. But even like amongst men, like there's so much posturing for dominance.
Position,
like he's the big wood guy and
Yeah.
the big saw guy, and like who cares?
Yeah, what
you think of operations where like I'm 150 pounds and like I know we can do great things as a team, and we lean on each other's skills. So if you're just like, no, I need the alpha, like heavy duty 200-pound dude.
Yeah.
Like there's lots of those tree services around, but
it's such an old school mentality. But even nowadays, even young guys coming in the industry or that have been in the industry for a few years say, "Oh yeah, I'm the big removal guy," and when anybody says that to me, it seems silly, because it's like, surely you want to be a rounded arborist that doesn't want to be doing the same type of job day in day out, because like any type of job gets boring after. Like if you're doing big removals for like 3 weeks solid, you're absolutely sick of it by the end of it. Or if you're doing fine pruning for 3 weeks solid, you get sick of it. Everybody wants a nice bit of diversity in the job. That's what keeps it fresh and exciting and interesting.
And having worked in all male environments and having worked with women along the way, it's just, I know it's just such a more well-rounded workplace, and like the type of conversations you have in the truck driving to the jobs is just there's just way more depth
Yeah.
And the
different. It's not. Yeah.
The friendships are just like I'm still close with people from way back where you had that really good social dynamic at work, and it just grounded it. It toned everything down, and like we have different skills. You have to recognize that, and if you're putting all your money on that one type of pony, like that's not a very resilient business approach, and it's just not healthy. And now we're realizing with the challenges of recruiting, like those people that are turnkey, that are heavy hitters, that can go in and make you money doing that one type of work, that pool is getting smaller and smaller. So if that's your approach to business, good luck. But
it's not like the long game. If that's how you're focused, then it might work for a couple of years, but in the long run, it's not going to be.
And you're going to work yourself to death.
Yeah.
You grind it down to cartilage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then definitely with like the evolution of equipment in our industry as well, it's making for a more efficient type of workplace. And when I'm sure it's the same when you got into the industry. When I got in, everybody was saying, "Oh yeah, you can climb until you're about 35, and then your knees and your hips and all kinds will be aching and shot, and then you'll have to go into like consulting or sales or whatever." But as long as you're smart and efficient and aren't just, if you're not short-sighted and just trying to get that one particular job on that one day done in the fastest possible time, no matter what you do to your body and no matter how achy you are at the end of the day, if you focus on being efficient and making it easy on yourself, then you're going to be able to climb, but I don't know, as long as you like, really. And especially with the equipment nowadays that's making our lives easy, if you keep up with the evolution of things, like, you know, people always talk about the old school climber, and it seems like some people who learned to climb 30 years ago, 40 years ago or whatever, they're just resisting to learn about the new equipment that's come out, because a lot of people think, "Oh, what's all that stuff hanging off your harness that you don't need?" But if only everybody was open to learning a little bit about the equipment and realizing that there's a use for everything. Everything has, like, there's a tool for each specific job, and you might not use something for a couple of weeks, but if you know how to use it when the job comes, and it makes your life easier.
I think that could have been a presenter. That could have been an abstract topic to say this, to increase longevity in this industry. These are the advancements in equipment, and I would have went to that talk and soaked it up and listened to them talk about things that I climb on. Mm-hmm. That would have been a great operations one, because
you could give that talk. You've got so much equipment.
I love gear. You know, I do gear review if I could, but that is a connection, right? We can climb into our 60s easy and do research like certain people we know, no problem, and they're better than I'll ever be at 60. They're awesome. Yeah. But the tools, there's a connection there between the operations, the tools, the longevity of your career, the ease on your body. And some people that we know that thought they were done climbing are back climbing and setting up our stations in our competitions, because they found single rope technique, for example, and it's totally a game changer. So the equipment, females are strong. They really are strong and capable of their own body weight. Like that's no problem for them.
Well, I have numerous examples. Like if it comes down to, like, you know, some of the statements we encounter out there, like women aren't productive, they can't make money, they're only in it for a short period of time, like all that shit. I can nail down some examples right now in the region of people that you put your best climber up.
Yeah.
I dare you. Yeah. You know, like, they're super strong.
Totally agree.
And not only that, but they're critical for us moving forward, because right now they are the poster child. They're out there in the open. They're recruiting right now future women into the trade.
Yeah.
Like, don't you dare get in their way.
Yeah.
It's so important, that work they're doing, and we need to support them.
That's what I want to do. I don't want to get in the way. I want to support and help. And we do some climbing, and there are recreation and climbs, but it just builds confidence. I'd like to get myself more involved in a few more of those, where just like fostering good relationships and instilling confidence and being there to help. Maybe I'm not there to help, but maybe I'm there to just say, encourage and say, you are awesome. They are awesome. And my wife maybe wants to try tree climbing, but the people that are showing her are like Kaylee, like you mentioned, and those are spearheading it for women. Like, great women in the industry are spearheading it for more women and trying to spread that network. A few men are really trying to help, which is awesome. But I think we could all do a bit more to mutter about gear to them, or to make them feel confident. Say, no, don't kid yourself. You're fast. You're strong. You're good. Because they have doubts, because potentially the industry's put doubts in their mind. But that's what we need to break down, and we can empower them and say, no, keep at it. This is going well. I've seen good things.
Yeah. That's it. And we need to, it's uncomfortable to talk about it. You don't want to say the wrong thing necessarily, and it's unfamiliar territory for men to talk about women in the workplace and how to make their experience better and how to build on that experience. But I think the biggest thing is like listening to women. Yeah. Like, there's enough information out there, and like, certainly if anybody out there would like to know where to find that information, I would be happy to point you in that direction, with Adrina's research, for example. And but we have a core group right now that's doing big things in Canada in particular, within our chapter as well, dipping down into Washington, Idaho, and Oregon, and just remembering that they are working 100% all the time. Like, nobody asked Kaylee or Justina to step out of their day-to-day to take on this extra work for the cause. Nobody asked them to do that. They're doing it.
They want to do it
on top of all their other priorities. Justina's a mother on top of that. Like, it's full on. So talking about how you can support them, and just remembering, like, keep your eye on the prize, and you're not always going to get it right. There's some things I know, like, I've had an opportunity, somebody said something, and you're just like, I really want to confront that, but I don't want to ruffle feathers in the workplace, that sort of thing. And then you leave and regret it, because you're just thinking like, but silence is acceptance. But that's just like, that's one small battle. It's not the end. Just like,
recognizing it is the first step. Whether you said something or not, at least you recognized it, and then potentially, just smogs in. But the next time, it won't be silent, right? And you say, not again, not again, or whatever. But I'm recognizing it as well. It didn't happen prior. We just said that's the norm. We can say that stuff, and people can feel that way. Yeah. And so we've already identified it's not cool. It's not normal. And then inroads into saying it won't happen anymore, because it is still, and obviously it's gonna come less and less and less. But we got to do where we can. We'll do what we can.
Yeah. And hopefully, as I spoke to Kaylee earlier in the week and asked her if she'd be keen to do a podcast, because I really want to get her take on it. Obviously, being a woman and being...
I hope we haven't offended, and because it's our take on a woman's view in a male-dominated world, and obviously we're men, but...
And that's the message I'm saying. Listen to women.
Yeah.
So
I'm with Ryan. So listen to women.
Kaylee seems keen to come on.
Awesome.
And hopefully we can...
And maybe a couple...
She can bring somebody else who she feels like is going to add a lot of value, and they can give us their perspective on it. Because the only other thing I'll add is I asked her when she'd done the women's tree climbing workshop that they had in Seattle back a few months ago, when we were out doing some training with her. I said to her, so would the women have gone to that same training if any men were invited, or even if men were the helping do the training, or like what did she get? What was the feedback that she got? And she said a lot of the women that registered because there was no threat of... Well, not. I mean, threat's the wrong word, but it's a safe space, and then they didn't have to feel pressured And even because, like, from my point of view, I would have been like, what if I were to come and just want to volunteer my time to help train somebody to get them in the tree the first time? And she was like, no, like any man being there would have put some of the women off from even registering from the whole like workshop, just because they feel so much more comfortable in a women in like a space just purely of women. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Kaylee says about it and what her conversations were from this conference, from the women's only networking, and to see what she takes from that and how she can then go forward, because it seems like she's taking this on her shoulders and really wants to run with it. And I know that she was invited just this past week to Boston to help out with the women's workshop that seems to they kind of tour around the States. It's run by Bear and Melissa, I'm not sure.
Melissa Levangi,
yeah. They've been running this women's workshop, tree climbing workshop, for, somebody said, like 10 years or something, and they kind of go around state to state and but this is how weird it is that this one in Seattle was the first one I'd ever heard of, so I thought it was a new thing, but it's been going for 10 years, they said, and so that's...
Things are, like, momentum's picking up. That's great.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that came up in the panel today is this idea that men find it like excluding men. They struggle with that. They see like a reverse sexism thing, but it all comes back to that safe space, and women they get so much fuel from that, and move so much further ultimately, and that work needs to happen first before we get to the next step. But it's just like seeing everything kind of, I mean, we've all been at it for a while now, and like seeing how everything's sort of culminating and growing so fast now, it gives me a great deal of hope. And it's still very fragile, but it's time that men in the industry started having those conversations and putting yourself in those opportunities. Fortunately, the conference has made space for it this year. Not every conference does, but that's a big step. There weren't a lot of people in that room. I certainly would have liked to have seen more, both women and men, but it's a big step in the right direction.
I personally didn't know if I would be welcome for the purpose of it's a woman's dominated conversation. I don't want to sway the conversation in any way. I'm proud of you for going. But yeah, I thought
that's you.
I just wasn't sure, like if I'd be welcome there. That was my thing. So I didn't go, but I'd love to be a fly on the wall and hear.
I saw when so I spoke to Kaylee at the tree climbing competition on Saturday, and I was like, "Oh, are you excited for the women's networking?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, but I'm feeling a bit of pressure." I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, actually. She was like, "Oh, I'm feeling a bit pressured because I've had a few men say to me, 'Oh, what? I'm not invited.'" And so she was like, she said then she started to backtrack a little bit, being like, "Oh well, I didn't say it was women's only. You can come in if you want." And I was like, "No, you need to stick to your guns, and this needs to be a women's only networking because of what she'd spoken to me about a few weeks before, saying that some women felt uncomfortable even just with the presence of a couple of men." I was like, you can't backtrack through like peer pressure because men are making you feel bad because, oh, why aren't we invited? Don't we? It's sexist and all this kind of stuff. It's a women's only event because there needs to be one. There doesn't need to be a men's only event because it's
historically that way.
Every day is
exactly. It's a male dominated industry. So every day on the work site is that without organizing it, as it were. But yes.
No, it's great. I feel like things are starting to happen here, and I know there's a few women in seats in the apprenticeship at Kwantlen. It's beginning, and I feel like the workplace, larger companies, I know I can cite a few examples between South Island and Lower Mainland where there are women working and have been working for a while. So that's a huge change in my relative short period in BC. We just need to build on that, and I think the main thing is like they're working so hard out there, showing them some appreciation, and just remember, like a young girl might drive by and see her climbing,
Yep.
or me. That's my story.
Yep.
Like I saw them climbing and it's like, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That looks like, you can go do that at work, like be in a playground. It's just that's the future for me. Like, let's build on that.
The future for me is my 5-year-old daughter who I've already bought a zigzag for, and I was telling Ryan she's 5 and just full of it, right? But I got a nice fir in my backyard and pull 10 slack, and she says that at 5 years old, going up to 14 feet looking in the birdhouse. I got a female climber in my future, and I couldn't be prouder. Yeah, for real. Yeah.
So, someone.
I remember her saying to me when I was around there the other day. She was actually taking the mickey out of your younger son. She was like, "Oh, he's too scared to climb."
Yeah, she's proud of herself already for being a climber. Like, she's empowered, and I think that's the right start, right?
Yeah.
There's no boundaries as a kid to who can climb trees. Why did that happen after 18 when we try to get into our careers, right? Yeah, no, it's pretty cool.
It's one of the first tree companies I worked for in Ontario still. She was a second generation tree climber.
Sweet.
I worked with her and her father. Her brother-in-law is like a family operation, but like, that's just so cool.
Totally cool.
Yeah, now she's teaching at Fleming, so just...
Yeah. That's it.
But like, did it slow me down at all? Like, it just... we still have that connection to this day, and I just feel like it changed my whole reality, and it should be the norm.
Yeah.
It works.
Yep. I liked how you said, like, at the academic level when you were in school, there were more females, and like, that's maybe the like learning by brute learning for the large companies who take on people and teach them the hard way. That might not be the best entryway for a female in this industry. No. Going to school and learning your stuff and getting these apprenticeships and getting in with educated, quality arborists, that's the way to do it. And I think you'd almost feel it would foster the growing faster, right? You insert yourself, which is awesome though, insert yourself into this private world, and you run into one of these companies or a person that might make it tricky. I just like to think maybe the success levels are better. Get into the school level, like in BC we have the ITA. Get in the school level, get your education, meet some people, build that encouragement and all the knowledge quickly. Get in the industry and you'll already have the confidence. You'll have that bravery, that gumption. You'll be like,
because it is a safe space, whether you're a man or a woman.
Totally. And that's how I feel about the city I work for. At that level, you have to be an adult. You have to have a safe space, and there's no appetite for any of the BS.
Yeah.
So maybe the old school private industry is the feeding ground for the BS, the total unacceptable anymore, and we all know that's disappearing.
But we can drive change.
We can, because we work and we know people in those industries too, right? And they're becoming, if they were middle men or middle women at that point now, as our careers advance, they're going to become the supervisors, managers, salesmen, and to drive that culture to say it's not accepted. There's no silence. There's no it's getting better, but I really think the education route is an awesome route to take, man or woman, but it's a great start for a female to feel safe, learn a ton on an equal playing field. Everyone gets the same darn book, everyone gets the same darn test, and then you go from there.
That's a perfect segue for the next topic, I think.
What do you want to talk about?
Let's talk about apprenticeship and talk about education.
How do we get better and safer and smarter? Yeah.
Did you do an apprenticeship while you're in the UK, or?
No, I didn't do an apprenticeship. I did a 2-year national diploma course in arboriculture, so it wasn't.
Yeah, so like a 2-year diploma or apprenticeship. Yeah.
Well, the way that I see an apprenticeship, like coming from the UK, is it's like you're a work-based learning kind of course rather than just going to college and learning and studying and doing the theory and then leaving there with a diploma and then going into workplace. Apprenticeship, in my head, has always been you learn on the job with maybe the odd little bit of schooling, like here and there kind of
thing. So I can't speak for everywhere, but in Ontario and BC, apprenticeship under the government training authorities anyway is education and on-the-job learning. There's an hours component in the middle of it usually. So you start in school, you work, you finish in school, do some more work, challenge the exam at the end of it for your certificate of qualification. But just the value of it for me, and I think the point I really like to drive is I didn't start this in school. I started learning on the job, and I had been doing the job for a while and was fortunate to end up in a workplace where they said, no, this is a requirement for us. You're going to school. Everybody that is climbing in our operation goes
and get the
2-year diploma,
formal training.
Really?
Yeah.
And
who was that?
It's a company called Complete Tree Service. It's in Burlington, and since bought out by Davey.
Well, the good ones get bought out. That's what happens.
That's right. Yeah. No, we had a really cool culture at that company. It had its problems, but in general, there were women in the workplace and women in management, all that good stuff. It was a healthy place to go to work, and they believed in education and continuing training as well.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was sort of indifferent about it. Like I was climbing at a pretty high level already, and I remember like when I started at school, people asked like, "Why are you here?" Like when we started to do the climbing, and like they're just learning sort of the basics, and I'm helping them sort of as a
coach or mentor.
Yeah, like an unofficial technician, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned a ton at school and in the classes, but just having that time in that safe space to work with people. Like I'm still close with several people I went to school with and instructors, but that making that effort down the road, like that opens doors. Like you may not think it's anything right now, but like later in your career, as you look at these higher level positions, those apprenticeships and diploma programs are so valuable. And myself, if I was to put myself in the shoes of a supervisor that was doing the hiring, like having been through that program and recognizing that they took the time and they learned in that safe space, and there's a commitment there, and but the quality of the training and the standards change and everything. You got to keep up on it, and other certifications kind of step in and help out with that. But I just can't say enough good about it, and I'll put in the plug for supporting our BC apprenticeship at this point, because we're at a critical juncture, and we've been saying that for a while, and we keep kicking it one more year, and we're starting to build up a little bit of momentum as far as getting people in seats, but it's really have more people signed up like year on year, or is it about the same, or is it been worse? Well, we're just about consistently hitting the targets on the first level of the program, the Arborist technician.
Yep.
As far as the amount of instructor to student ratio is like sort of maximum right now, but there's not enough to make that leap to add more instructors and more students yet. Yeah. And we're also like up against who is capable of instructing the program right now.
Yeah.
Because it's all very new and not a lot of people even have the qualification yet.
Yeah. So is it for somebody to actually instruct the program? Is there a base level? Do they have to have challenged the program already, or do they just need to prove that they have the knowledge to be able to teach the program?
So having the credential is pretty key at this point, depending on what level you're training. But instructional techniques certificate it's offered through some at the college level is like a 4-day course. That's a big boost, but not required. It's a big part of it is your certifications, and having a college diploma certainly wouldn't hurt. But having instructing experience is kind of the key.
There's a real.
It's not like your 2-day chainsaw course where you're outside most of the time and you're good at holding the tools. Like we're talking lectures where you're doing most of the preparation to give them that content, and then take them out to the field and demonstrate and practice.
Yeah, and do it in a way where they're going to absorb it. Like, so you have to have the skills in.
Well, they need to pass the test at the end. Like they need to be able to demonstrate those skills confidently. So it's up to you. Like now you're really under the gun. Like you need to be able to deliver, and that takes practice. But it's hard to come by.
It might be a great growing opportunity for someone who is super knowledgeable in plant ID, super knowledgeable in other areas of arboriculture, but never thought themselves as a teacher or a professor. But some people do it naturally. Some people make web videos all the time and teach hundreds of people all the time, and they don't have formal education training. And I don't know who we're talking about, but like some. Anyways, there's more people in our industry that are qualified to do this that need to put themselves in a vulnerable position to say, I do want to give back, or I could get over this public speaking fear and take a Toastmasters course and go do this. And it would be great for the industry, and maybe everyone at this table could do it. I would love to. I'm not sure if I'm qualified, but I think I could teach plant ID. But at the same time, it's my life balance that is not good.
I'm putting your name forward right now. but the only way we build instructors, I think the best possible instructors we have for the program are going to be the ones that can do and have followed up on professional development all the way through their career.
Totally.
The other part, some people are terrible at it.
Yeah.
You'll know right away. But I mean, if you're operating as a mentor in your workplace currently, that's a big part of it. And building skills, just planning out your day, and that's so much of what it is just planning. And it's been amazing being in an instructing role, because it forces you to go back through all that content that you've forgotten and dig into the books, and you realize you've been saying something like mixing up vigor and vitality for the last 3 years. Like, wow, I'm glad I went back and read that. And
the nuances.
So it brings your standard back up too. You got to rise to the occasion, and it's a lot of pressure, but it's amazing too.
Yeah.
And realizing you're one of the few that are capable.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at you two again here. That's so valuable, and that's what we need. We need people to step up, because if you're not going to do it, who else is going to? And then
No, and is that a critical point?
I'll talk a little on my point of view at the moment. So I would actually love to do part of the training for the ITA. One, I am terrified of public speaking, but I really want to. I keep trying to put myself in those positions to become better at it, because that's the only way it's going to happen.
Yeah. What is this we're doing? I guess it's not like a huge crowd back there.
Yeah, exactly. There's not like a load of people listening that I have to look at their face and think, oh God, what am I going to say next? But the reason why, because I think you forwarded on my email about doing a part of the instructing for that course for this coming term or whatever, but the reason why I had to turn that down is because I've agreed to do a presentation at a conference in November
in New Zealand,
that I'm absolutely, I don't know if I should say it on a podcast, because
you're gonna meet them all.
But just public speaking in general, I need to get over the fear of it, and I know it's mainly about the knowing your content, and then just trying to put it all together into a good presentation. But I think I'm so hard on myself about wanting it to be, everybody like can take away what the information is that I'm trying to present, and I don't want to lose people, and so it's the biggest fear is not keeping people engaged, and I know that I need to get over that, and people might say, oh yeah, you've made all these videos, but making a video is a completely different thing to speaking in front of like either 5, 10, 500, 50 people, whatever. And yeah, so that's why I accept these, what I see as challenges, because I want to get better at it, and the only way I'm going to get better is if I say yes, and then I'm like, oh god, I have to now prepare and make sure that this turns out alright, so I don't make myself look like a complete dick. but yeah, it's the only way.
You just do it over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, I never liked it.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
You know, it doesn't matter if it's like sometimes I did a safety topic, like an hour-long safety topic, just with the people in my workplace, and that was my job full time. Like at my previous employer, is just speaking to a group of 60 people at a time, and it never gets comfortable, but with practice, and then you always sometimes you end up with a group with your closest peers, and that's almost worse. That's strange.
It's funny.
For the reasons you said, and yeah, the bigger the group, sometimes you find a mechanism to manage it. I kind of just stare blankly around. It's
That's
like
your go-to.
My eyes are moving, but like it's disconnected or something. I'm just really trying to focus on what's immediately in front of me, so I don't stumble and embarrass myself. And
you do a great job at the at the Soak and Loams as basically a moderator for bringing people together for awesome workshops. You do a wicked job. And that's huge. I wouldn't be able to put myself in that position to say I'm creating an event. You create events and then speak at them. And anyways, that's appreciated, Ryan, and whatever you think is you're professional at what you do. And Soak and Loam is, for those who don't know, is just a small workshop that Ryan held on the island, but got some people together, talk about some really interesting operational issues, some indigenous issues, some really important issues that are all tied together. And Ryan spearheaded that and made that happen. Those change our industry, and that brought, 40 people, 50 people together. But you're doing the things that you're saying are hard for you, and you're doing them well.
And Ryan Murphy and
of course,
Jennifer
Well, absolutely. Thank you for shouting out to them too. Of course. But I mean,
you're doing it. In that sentence you just said there was so many segues that I wanted to go off on and kind of talk about different points of Ryan in the industry and how he's. It's important. I can't even remember half of them, but one of them is I wanted to talk about the competition that you run, which is the BC tree climbing competition, and how you kind of took it in its own direction. And try it, and with the initial one incorporating training with it as well as the competition, and then taking that and doing like a winter event, which was not a competition but just the training event, and kind of combining all those things. And also I wanted to talk to you about because when you were saying to Aidon about sometimes you forget, like vigor, vitality, that kind of thing. I was thinking a lot of the time, if I want to make a video about a certain technique and I'm a little bit unsure if this is like 100% the safest way to do it, or I don't want, I never want to put anything out there that's that somebody can use and then it's not the safest way to do it, because I want everything that I promote and put out there safe. Like the number one name of the person to ask, like I always think of you first, because you're more knowledgeable on safety in our industry with regards to equipment and techniques, I would say, than anybody else that I know, really. So I always value your opinion. I value more than anybody's in that
Well, I should say that much of the time it's all about references and knowing where they are. It's impossible to remember all that stuff.
Yeah.
But if you establish those connections with those materials, but also just exposure to these situations and fucking up, you know.
We learn from that.
There's a lot of that, and talking about I don't know if I can mention it really yet, about the project we discussed that you're integrating with the latest release of the website.
All right. Yeah.
Talking.
We can talk about that.
Maybe we'll just stick a pin in that and save it for later.
Yeah. Parking lot it, as we say.
Put it in the parking lot.
Yeah.
But sharing, that's why I initially approached you with the idea, like sharing your incidents. One of the things that just drives me absolutely mad about our regional regulator is that they don't share those details, with the exception of very high profile events. And even then, a lot of the time we don't get the level of detail that we could really benefit from.
Yeah. Pull that microphone or come closer to it.
Okay,
yeah.
There we go.
You see the level on there.
That's sort of a big thing. We learn that things do go bad, and we have close calls and don't necessarily treat them with the level of respect that is necessary. That's an opportunity for you to make change, and if you just ignore it as an outlier or a freak situation, that probably won't reoccur.
Yeah. And the thing is, like in this industry, people say in everyday life, like trial and error, you learn from your mistakes, but this is kind of a situation where you don't really want to be learning by your mistakes if you can help it. Like,
nope.
It's bad to say, but you almost want to learn from other people's mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really want to, but if somebody has an injury or a close call or something that you want to learn from that rather than it happening to you.
I know exactly what you're saying, and absolutely. And the thought process for me is like, what if? So I always say, what if? What's the worst case scenario here? What's the absolute worst case that could happen here? And you have to run through that scenario to say that's not acceptable. I'm not willing to accept that worst case scenario because that could be the end of it. Or worst case scenario, it slips and drops to the lawn. It's a worst case scenario I'm okay with, right? So have those worst case scenarios in your head and run through them and say, it's a risk analysis. We're risk managers at all times. And our job can be risky, especially if not done properly, professionally, and thoughtfully, right? But the accidents still happen, right? And so we have to say that people who get injured or worse, they did probably think of the worst case scenarios and they thought it's super low probability or not at all. So that still happens. Our industry is a real danger. There's hazards in it. But that's what I do. I go far to like what if and what could happen, and I try to mitigate those potentials or at least prepare myself for them, and then say no, risk is not acceptable. We've done that on work sites together, and that probably wasn't a potential for a real failure there, but it was close enough, and I'm in the tree and I said this is the call we're making. And that's had to do that on so many levels all the time. Maybe we're risk managers more than arborists at times, right?
Yep.
That's our job.
When we worked on the job that you just mentioned, I remember you saying to me, I got down from a tree that I went up just to inspect and to do a little bit of dead wooding from, came down expecting that I was going to climb this dead hemlock tree that we were removing, and then you were like, oh no, I'll climb this because I wouldn't invite you out to work with me and tell you that you're taking down this tree that I know is absolutely sketchy.
Yeah,
who would do that to somebody?
And it's funny, I've never heard anybody say that before. That
really?
I'll take that job on because I know how sketchy it is and I don't want to put anybody else in danger, so I'm going to take it on.
And remember, I thought it was sketchy, but I didn't think it was dangerous.
Yeah.
At no point did I fear for my safety, but bringing someone smart with a brain like Dan on site, and I work with a very talented arborist all the time, the three of us, I felt really confident.
Also, gesture of respect.
It is, and no, I'm not going to call an awesome arborist and say you're doing that sketchy tree. See the conchs, let's count them. That's just my professionalism, but that's not. I brought you up for your brain and just to make sure that we were all thinking about the options and the risk. And that's just like, so that's what we all got to do.
What you were talking about with the piece you were rigging is on a controlled slide line with the knot.
Different.
Yeah, and I was just like imagining that in my head, and like, yep, seen that. Like, just not in that exact configuration, and that Marl probably would have mitigated it for the most part, but like I've seen it where you just like think you got that knot, but it's, if you're loading the tail, it's just, you know, it'd be next to impossible for the stars to align for that to happen. But you know, if there is a better tool, then we're going to use it. And part of that is making yourself vulnerable, and that's been me. You know, it took a while to get into that headspace, because like someone comes at you with safety feedback, like initially your response is like, fuck off, right? So learning,
especially when you think yourself as a safe person. You're like,
learning,
you're not a cowboy.
Learning how to receive that information. And making a space where you can have those sorts of conversations about each other's gear and your choices. It starts to become just the common practice where we have that discussion. It's like, what do you think about this knot for this situation? And I like being on a job site where those people are around, where we can take things further in that capacity, and you learn as you go. And the best part is you learn about their past experiences within their network too. You know, they talking about the close calls and stuff. It's like, oh, this happened to you, that happened to you, that happened to me too, you know? So that's, you know,
you
do it long enough. Pardon?
You guys all post your near misses on Instagram, right? Like everybody?
Yeah.
Like that's
my hinge.
The social media world is like, if everyone's doing epic work every day, and like, we all should make ourselves a bit more vulnerable and be like, ooh, this actually happened today, and I'm guilty of it too. I don't want to put that stuff up there, but that's learning stuff that we all should say. I challenge you to put the next time something goes slightly awry, whatever it is, slightly wrong, where you're like, didn't predict that, and that's just something I want to mention. And it's not necessarily I almost lost my life. Like, no, we're talking small things that you're like, this can happen, this is smooth, this really screwed me, like, you know, whatever.
That was I think one of the other benefits of that is just you know, how you would do things differently next time. But when things have gone colossally wrong for me in the past, and it does, you know, it does happen. It doesn't happen to everybody, but some of the safest people I know out there have had some stuff go really sideways.
I think the majority of people that have been in the industry long enough have all had things go
either directly or, you know, on that site where you're involved. And you know, stepping back, and once the dust settles and everybody calms down, and just like, okay, what just happened, and what would we do differently next time? And the part I like to focus on is like, well, what was really good about that? And I can think of one really, you know, kind of the one that was probably most recent. It was a while ago, but most recent in my memory was just like, okay, we had all these other things in place, and as a result, it didn't go really bad. Nobody got hurt. Everybody was communicating. Everybody was out of the way. That area was secure. Nobody could get in there. So there's some property damage that occurred, but you know, by going through our protocol and procedures, you know, maybe somebody didn't get hurt.
Mitigated the injury. No, that's just it, because at times we're doing work that there's a likelihood or a small probability that this can go wrong. Even with our best techniques and our best, you know, we're tasked to remove dangerous trees, known as a hazard tree, known as a whatever, or a limb that's absolutely hanging over a greenhouse. And we're professionals and want to say it'll go right every time, but there is that possibility. Because it's the biomechanics of a tree is a living thing. Nature. It's a nature.
You don't know. It's not a man-made object where you know exactly how it's going to react.
Exactly.
Like, you know, hopefully we've got enough knowledge and experience that 95% of the time things are going to go as you expect them to go. But there is the unknown of what is inside of a stem or a branch.
Roots.
They
exactly.
can't see that stuff.
Yeah.
And we take all the courses in the world to know what we think the body language of this tree is telling us.
Yeah. And do we really know, like, if you say felling a whole tree or felling a part of a tree, the actual forces and as they're directed as the piece is going, and how that affects the stability of the tree, and how that translates down the stem, and if a certain tree's got weaknesses in a certain portion of a stem, do those forces translate, and on one individual tree that you do over 20 years in the industry, it just so happens that it's the wrong amount of force on the wrong tree causes like a failure or something.
Exactly. It's nuances, right? It's nuances, and these experiences and our training and our mentors and friends prepare us for all these, but the unknown could still happen.
That's why we go through the protocol and the procedure. It's a numbers game. It's an exposure game.
It is.
Consequences and probability. So just if you're playing fast and loose, it's just irresponsible, I think.
Yeah, you just expose yourself so much more. So going back to
what were we talking about?
No, going back to like posting, if you would post a video on something that you did wrong or a close call, do you think there is enough people that would use a space, if you could make a page that was just all about close calls, do you think there's enough people that can swallow their pride to make a video and say, right, this is, or maybe not even a close call, maybe they've seriously injure themselves, and then they swallow their pride and say, I was doing this, I know it was wrong, or I know it was unsafe, or I was doing this, I thought it was okay, for other people to learn from, because of all the videos, like with the internet nowadays, it's just day after day it's just the volume of content on the internet in general is just like snowballing at such a fast pace. But the amount of videos like tree related that get uploaded every day is huge, especially if you follow like the different Facebook groups and people on YouTube and stuff like that. But the amount of tree videos compared to the amount of videos about injuries and close calls, there's a huge discrepancy. And do you think there's any way to like encourage people to share stories, or it's too much of a pride thing that they don't want to be seen as like, not, I don't know what the word is, just
I know exactly what you mean.
Maybe unsafe, maybe just on that particular time, or unsafe because that's how they work in general, or
it's,
I don't know. What
it comes down to is on the internet, video in particular, it's a very difficult thing to manage or moderate.
Yep.
I think if we're having that conversation between us, I think it's much better received. You can see the impact with a person, and certain respects are provided in that environment that tend to be just overrun on YouTube. Like the comments can sort of run the gamut, and it's hard to take that, especially when they don't know, like you haven't explained necessarily in every increment how it played out. Assumptions are made, so I think the tendency is people choose to avoid it. And it's nice because the odd video I see where they do that, a few people acknowledge it and like, yeah, that took guts, sharing that.
I agree.
But then the next three comments are like, that was fucking stupid, ridiculous, you're an idiot.
Almost like getting hazed or bullied online all of a sudden. And
and then it gets deleted. Like, okay,
message over.
I remember one video in particular of the guy. He was piecing down like the trunk of a tree, or he'd just taken the top out, and so he was just piecing down the next. Oh, was he taking it? I think this was him taking the top, so it was like, I don't know, 8-10 inch piece, and he was using one hand to push it and using the other hand, and for whatever reason, whatever happened, it kicked a little bit, and it was enough to scuff his forearm of his left arm. But he had the balls to swallow his pride and post that online, and I give him huge props, because he's basically showing that's why you shouldn't do that. And he was showing that he was doing something that he knows is wrong and against safe work practice and all this kind of stuff, and hopefully he learned enough from that, and he understands how lucky he was not to sever some serious tendons in his arms and bleed out or whatever. And it'd be interesting to actually to speak to him now and see if he's slipped back into his old ways, or if that was like enough to stop everything. And but yeah, that takes a lot of guts. But I remember reading the comments, and most of those were positive. They were like, "Thanks for sharing. This has really like opened my eyes. Thanks for sharing. This has taken a lot of bottle to share a video like this, like to kind of not throw yourself under the bus, but you know what I mean, like just
expose yourself to that. I made a mistake. Yeah,
and exposing yourself to all those comments that you could potentially receive about doing it unsafe. But I think if you do it in a certain way to say, look, I know I'm wrong, here's what happened to me, please don't let this happen to you, change the ways you do it now before it does happen. And I think if you approach it with with that being your intention to help other people from your mistake, then the majority of comments should be positive, and the negative ones, you just got to ignore them.
Yeah,
I look at it as when that stuff does go up, I think this is a great benefit for a future training video. But just more that I forgot what I was going to say. It was more that. Anyway, move on. It'll come to me.
Yeah, I don't see many near misses, but the ones I do, it's not that they glamorize the injury or whatever, but it's almost like, and they're certainly not proud it's happened, but to show your entire leg mangled by a stump grinder and to say like, hey, don't do this. I mean, that was a serious accident for that to ever happen. But yeah, bring it to light that this could happen to somebody else.
Yeah.
But at the same time, some of them come across as like, look at what I survived through. So I don't know. The motivation behind some people posting them is questionable. But we should all learn from them. Nobody should throw in the dumb comment as in like, yeah, why would your leg hit the stump grinder, dummy? But like to say that does make a person totally vulnerable. They put themselves out there and said like, wow, this is the impact of this is crazy.
Yeah.
So I say kudos, and I haven't posted my near misses previously, and I've had a few, things that didn't go great, property damage or almost injury or whatever. But yeah, it's pride, and you want to always. We all pretend like we're best practice people, and 99% of the time I'm a best practice person. But even best practices causes issues, and if you have a near miss and you're performing best practices, why would you be ashamed to say I was doing everything I thought was appropriate? I have high level training. I work with great arborists, and this still happened. 90-degree fall. Why? My bar was barely. I didn't cut the strip of the root flare, and someone was pulling too early on my tagline. 90 degrees. Pedestrians like. Holy crap. Like, that's the stuff of, like, you ought to have known, but that's an accident. It's not dumb, right?
And what I was going to say that I forgot there is chances are it's not going to land with most people, but, one person.
It's a difference.
Where it makes a difference, then it's worth it.
It is.
And I've seen stuff out there that has made a difference.
Yeah.
Or that you can share to somebody else. Somebody says, that's never happened.
Yeah.
There's a pretty good amount of videos out there to demonstrate a number of points.
Totally.
Yeah.
In our industry, I maybe this is just me and the way I feel, but in my 12 years in tree work, the information I find out, I'm not on a safety officer level, but the information I find out about fatalities or near misses from in the province of BC is next to nothing. So the regulated bodies that are saying, hey, here's the 10 incidents that have happened this month, and at me it's a workplace, and we have a joint occupational health safety committee, you get a bit from them, but it's not the province. I didn't hear about the details of the fatalities. I didn't hear about the details of the near misses, or the guy who cut his leg. You're not getting enough from the industry, so perhaps it's us industry people that have to say, they're not reported enough, and if they're reported, perhaps they don't disseminate to the entire community. So let's put them out there on social media and say, I don't know if the government's going to put it out that there was 2 deaths, but this is how they, not those, you don't talk about this, but our own personal experiences. Let's put them out there, because otherwise I don't think they get to the masses. I'm involved and I want, and I ask the right questions. I still get I don't get the information.
WorkSafe changed just recently. There was an update to the OHSR where they are now requiring close calls are to be reported where there was a potential threat to life
or major property damage.
Yeah. Nobody does it.
No,
but all that information, like, I think people would be more inclined to share that information if they had a belief that WorkSafe might actually do something with it back to the public, raising awareness. They just want to generate stats.
I know, but
share the damn stats.
Share the data, if not the individual experience of like Johnny Arborist got this way, but share the numbers at least, right?
Is the main issue there the worry from the company owner that if they report a close call, oh my God, is this going to have a bad effect?
Of course.
That's
insurance.
So no company in their right mind, unless their morals are so high and they care very little about the insurance premiums that they're going to have to pay, are going to report something that they think is going to have an effect on...
But there's always the threat of a complaint where someone reports that close call to WorkSafe, and you don't have any documentation to show that had occurred and you hadn't contributed, right? They operate on that sort of fear system, rather than incentivizing it to industry. You share with us, we'll aggregate that data, turn it into something that you can digest and maybe inform your policies and procedures, bring change to your own workplace. They could do that, but it's not. They've decided that's not their mandate. They just want to. They know the value in close calls, right?
Yeah.
But they're using it for different purposes that maybe don't benefit us on the proactive front.
Yeah. So I suppose I'll mention briefly what you were going to say earlier on about my. So I'm basically redoing my website at the moment, and
sneak out. I gotta go piss in the chips.
I'm giving my website a bit of a revamp, bit of an overhaul, because it's been online for, what are we now? It's been online for about 5 years now, and it's pretty like the just the way it's been designed is very basic. It's user friendly, but it's not like up to date. It's not mobile friendly. So I'm having the website redesigned, and a part of the new design and a new feature of the website is going to be like an incident database to record incidents, purely like that are incidents that people are willing to spend 5 minutes to input into my website, so that it can create this database, and hopefully if we can spread the word and encourage other people to share their close calls or their minor cuts, injuries, or even more major incidents, and then there's going to be an option to be able to add media, so add pictures and add videos, which would be awesome, because just through this conversation I was thinking, man, this incident database is already been created as the website's been developed, and it's kind of almost getting to be nearly finished, so that's that bit's in place. But I'm almost thinking now if it's worth having a page purely of videos of close calls and incidents, so that people can upload videos and then they can send them to me and say, I'm happy for you to share this or embed this video online, and here's a brief description of what happened. And I think that'd be really cool, and I think it'd be something that people would be really interested to watch and learn from. And if there's like one specific page to go to watch all these different people sharing their close calls and stuff.
I don't think
and
that
it's something
exists. Like,
it definitely doesn't exist.
I don't think
and
so.
I think
it's great.
I think it's something that the next time any of us have a close call, or there's an injury on a job site that we're working with, or or close call or anything, if people agree that they're happy to share the story, then I think we should start making videos and sharing those and encouraging other people to do the same, like colleagues and friends, and hopefully this will start a little bit of a snowball effect, and other people might do the same. And then
you learn a lot from that, and like no different than we've got colleagues working on hazard tree databases to document and profile where trees are failing and how they're failing is the exact same way we learn from documenting and profiling and saying near miss, learn from it. It's identical. And we need the hazard database to say, man, it seems like an awful lot of trees failing from this, defect. Wow, there's a real reoccurrence of this incident. We all know one-handing will lead to injuries, but when you see the numbers and you see the stats and people post their injuries and you see things happening again and again, it'll drive home the fact that those are the reoccurring critical incidences, and just identify them as the major ones. Let's deal with them. And like, every one. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and
good idea.
Ryan just nipped out to the toilet while we're discussing.
I'm feeling refreshed.
But I just basically give a little brief rundown to say that with the website revamp, we're going to introduce a new feature, which is the incident database, which was kind of your brainchild, and you sent over another idea and said, if anybody would be able to do this, it'd be cool if it was on your website and as a resource for any arborist to be able to add to and learn from. And then I was just saying to Aidon, as we've been talking about close calls and people sharing videos, I was even thinking, because there's going to be a feature where you can add like some media, so some pictures or some videos, but it'd be nice to have like even just a page dedicated to people talking about their incidents in a video, where they could send me like the embedded code and say, I'm happy for you to show this video, and then people can go through and watch and learn. I mean, I've tried to make this new incident database as user friendly as possible, so that people aren't having to like slog through a whole form of I don't want it to make it a hassle for people, but at the same time we still want the important information
you need
to be able to learn from. So hopefully people will see the value in it and take it on as something that they feel important enough to share with others, and then
the way I see it sort of rolling out, drawing on the similarities with the PNW tree failure database, is a little slow to pick up steam as far as getting people contributing, but I'll just throw in a little plug for data. Like it's so vital that we build skills in data management as arborists. Like that's so much of our future, and it may not be a part of your job right now, but it doesn't matter if you're with a small company or large. Spreadsheet skills or life skills, I say it all the time, but I just like geek out big on just cruising through data and finding ways to pull data out, and just like analyzing it. It's so key, and safety will be no different. It'll take a while to kind of build up some momentum there as far as getting people over their hang-ups to share. But when they recognize, hey, this is one point, one safe place where I can go share that information, whether it's anonymous or whether you put your name on it, it doesn't exist right now, and the challenges we have with all these different regulators in different jurisdictions is some share, some don't. Some workplaces share, some don't.
Yeah.
Some workplaces would rather not know anything. It's like, oh, that happened today.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no documentation of that. We'll just pay cash and put that eavesdrop back on, and nothing happened here, right?
Never happened. Yeah,
that's right. That's part of the job.
Yeah.
We're tree guys. We
never done that.
Come on, you fancy our gutter. That's part of the job.
Yeah.
Repaired those. So that every time that happens is a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
To say this has happened. Just in the data we have, this has happened this amount of times, and you'll be able to pull that data pretty quick.
Yeah. I think it's powerful.
having a little bit of flexibility in that database, I just love that stuff, and it's so powerful. I've been in that reactive situation for a lot of my career where you're just looking at what's immediately in front of you, and you keep going through you fall into the same traps over and over again. But if you're exposed to all that information, what I was talking about with references before, where those references are when you need them. You're around smart people, you're communicating, all that sort of stuff, and you have access to all this data. It's great in the municipality for me because I deal with data all the time, be it our inventory or our planting plans, processes and so on. You just have tons of information to inform future decisions.
Yeah.
And now workplaces could pull data from that resources potentially. That's going to make them more effective. There's no course out there for a tree worker safety person. Like there's the CTSP, which is a good start, but it doesn't prepare you to be go into a large workplace and you're going to manage safety for 60 people or 10 people or 5 people.
I took the data from the stats on chainsaw injuries and presented it to my municipality as a powerful reason why the green triangle is great in Canada, but chainsaw protection would be better. Mm-hmm. And here's the stats why. And it didn't take much to sway my health and safety board to say, chainsaw protection boots would be smart and we'll pay for those for you.
Boom.
Prior to that, it's like go to Mark's Work Warehouse in Canada. That's just a general place to buy construction boots with a green triangle that says they're steel toe and safe. Yeah. It's not appropriate for our job. It's not the best practice. Industry has better things in Europe. So it took a little bit of a business case, right? But I used just data, just someone else's data, and I ran with that. So it's a weird example, but that.
But somebody else's data. This is just like this is the benefit.
The same thing.
That if you choose to keep it for internal purposes, that's one thing. But if you put it out there, and there's a few places doing that, and that's kind of a theme with this year's conference is it's data heavy.
Data heavy, it is. Yeah.
But you got to expose yourself to that world because that's the world we're moving into, and the sooner you get a grasp of that, is like you're just going to open doors for yourself, and you're going to be wasting much less time and energy doing bigger things, bringing systemic change. So, I think as long as we work together to let people know the value of this, and ultimately it comes down to fewer workers getting hurt, less property damage. It's really healthy for us and spread it far and wide.
Yeah, I think we all talk.
I think that's going to be the challenge with this as a tool, is to spread the word and encourage people enough to start using it, because in this day and age of technology, everybody thinks that if something takes a few minutes, it's like, oh god, it's such a hassle to do something. And whereas we need to encourage people that this is so valuable and much more than just 5 minutes out of your life to fill in.
I think that the people engaged on safety, I'm just drawing a complete parallel to what I saw today out of Adrina's work on women in arboriculture and their experiences, her casting that out just to her network of key people. Like, this is what we're doing. We need to get word out that this survey is here. Can you spread it to everybody that is a woman in our urban forestry or forestry? they got a ton of responses pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I think the people that are engaged on safety in their workplaces, there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
It's not the masses, but
Yeah.
you know, if we at least start with them,
Exactly.
share the vision,
Yep.
the ultimate goal, and that the data is going to be hopefully shared in some capacity. Here's what's trending type stuff. You can have access to that information, certainly just on a record by record level. If you need to build training materials off of that, like that's such a huge resource. If I had access to that as a safety and training professional, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, you're drawing from a wide net of resources to kind of build your persuasion for whatever you're doing in instruction or safety meetings, that sort of thing. No, I think we can get the ball rolling
Totally.
pretty quick.
We can spearhead it in our own workplaces. I mean, you run your own company, of course.
We do it
It's
with
easy.
the failure database, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Just spreading the word.
Yeah.
Here's the value, and like for us, like if we have data out of tree failure that's like through the PNW, it's, you know, I can go to my boss with that, right? Like, here's what's happening down here. Like, we're not all that far from Seattle, and
Yeah. Oh, it's
and so
great
on.
stuff. Yeah. Good idea. Good idea. To add it to
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
whomever's idea, but make
Ryan's
it
idea.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will
Dan
contribute.
made it happen. I saw the initial version, and it's like that's just it. It needs to be not long enough that it drives people away, but not short enough but the data has no value. And
Yeah.
I think it's just about right on the mark. Like,
Perfect.
you can buzz through. Really, it comes down to, like, you can click the check boxes in under 30 seconds on, you know, what type of incident it was and so on. But like, it comes down to the story share. How much or how little do you want? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, the detail, yeah.
It actually can be anonymous, I'm sure.
Yep.
Those who are worried about that, or the companies that Davy Trees aren't going to publish it, but the employee can go home and say, "This is what happened."
Yeah, you can say this is what happened,
It's
but I don't
powerful.
want to say that it's me sharing it because I don't want to get in trouble from my employer, but
Right.
I want
Yeah.
to share the story. And
There may be insurance implications. There may be pride implications, but get the word out there one way or another.
Yeah.
And I think we all benefit. And seems common sense, but we could all work at it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about the climbing competition?
we
We started talking about it and then we went off.
Yeah,
We derailed.
yeah. If you wanna keep going.
Are you guys still with us?
Yeah. Wakey. Yeah.
It did just wrap up. It was a big one. It was a good one.
Yeah.
And them in general. I like talking about them in general. But
Yeah, I love talking about climbing competitions in general. This one maybe a little less for me because it didn't go all that great, but
you have expectations in yourself, right?
Yeah.
You have expectations of yourself, and you know your potential. And if you don't hit your potential, and you've been there before, that is hard for any professional in any industry, any sport, anything you're into, to know that you can achieve here and have something happen and you achieve here. That's going to leave a taste of resentment or a sour taste in your mouth, and you're going to come back more fired up, right? So that's pretty standard that you'd feel disappointed in yourself if you didn't place, you know. But
yeah. But having said that, the field of climbers this year was probably the highest caliber of climbers in any competition that I've entered in the last like
certainly, I'd
6
say
years
that.
or so. It was a great field of climbers, and it was the quality of climbers basically meant that you had to be on your A game and everything go exactly as you're hoping to qualify for the Masters climb, and yeah, like a couple of things for me didn't go great, especially in the work climb, which was the first event, and then that put it was a bad start to the day, and then it was like wasn't downhill from there. A few events went well, but yeah. But what about you? You actually, I will explain what happened. So with the new Ascent event, obviously it's been the last 2 years now, the change to the ascent event.
Yeah.
And so there's obviously the ascent, which in this year's PNW they decided to go for 79 feet, which is a huge ascent, and I think shocked a lot of people because everybody's just used to, from having the footlock, being used to like a 50-foot ascent, even though it says in the rules that it can be anywhere from like 40 to 80 feet now. But then they also introduced the setup and changeover portions of the event. Me and Aidon were actually been out practicing for a few weeks before the competition, and we'd practiced the ascent event and the changeover times, and we were trying to get them really dialed in. I think we were practicing a little too much on the ascent event because for the point value in a competition it's not a huge amount, but we kind of got obsessed with it and wanted to really like get down a slick setup and change over time, and but after the results came out, it seemed that all that training paid off for Aidon, because you're an absolute rocket up there, and setup time was like 8 seconds. Ascent time beat the next person by 3 or 4 seconds, the majority of the field beat by a good 10 to 15 seconds.
Yeah.
So yeah, congrats on that result.
You won the event?
Thank you. Yeah, I won.
Nice.
Yeah, I won the ascent event, which I've never placed top 3 in a climbing comp prior, so that was I really wanted to do that, to say okay, I can hang, and yeah, Dan and I had been focusing a bit on that, and there was a little last minute changes due to the concerns over a system that maybe I had been climbing on that maybe wasn't a great system for safety, and I needed to add another piece. And so I came to Dan and I said, well, I need to change a few things, and he helped me with a few things, and some last minute changes really panned out, and it was just a good run for me. But anyways, that part of it was excellent. I really liked that event, and obviously placing first was huge for me. It was super fun, super pumped, right?
Yeah.
The other 4 events I was average-ish. I had a great time personally, but again, like Dan said, the field of climbers was epic, right? Yeah. So me having an epic day doesn't put me at their epic day, but that's fine. That's the growth that I'm looking for late in my climbing career. But yeah, it was a cool event, and but I left feeling room for improvement. I left feeling training with a good friend who's interested in training the right way paid off immensely. I felt after the camaraderie and networking that happened at the event, that the apprehensions and the anxiety that I get from competing is this piece, right? And I don't like that, but I love the adrenaline and the feeding off of it. So these two things are like juxtaposition for me and antagonists in a way, but like I like to dive in, challenge myself with something new, right? So that's my experience with the tree climbing comp, and I'm just going to come back and try and train some more and come back to the next one. And I love the event that you put on, and I'm going to continue to come back and try to perform locally. And the PNWRC was awesome. Yeah,
it's probably a good time to
let's talk. Yeah. Let's talk.
What were you going to say? Go on.
Yeah.
So there's big changes coming for the BTCCC next year.
Yep.
And Soak and Loam, we're kind of rolling them together. More not phasing out the climbing component, the climbing competition component, but reducing it significantly for a few reasons. I mean, when I've been producing events since I was 15. I started doing bike events from a young age, and for me, events, it's always about creativity and like responding to the needs of the community, and I think where we're at in the community, Murphy and I have talked about this a little bit, and we're just we're seeing how things were going and just checking the pulse every time. We always debrief after the event and before the event, frankly, and it's just like, what do you see happening? What do you see coming? And we've kind of changed the beast a few times over the years. This was our 8th event since it changed hands from Rupert in 2011, I guess. And it's changed forms a few times. We tried to do the education thing within it at one point, but it was too many moving parts really to handle.
Yeah.
And focus back on competition, kind of stripped it down to its basics. And the great thing was with that format, we could tweak it to wherever we were going. We wanted to go to new places, and we wanted to take it across the province for a true provincial championship. However, there's been frustrations along the way with, from one year to the next, it's one thing or another, but it takes its toll on you. Especially it's one thing when it's at home and you're 20 minutes to your bed and you can kind of unwind a little bit, but when you're in Chilliwack or in Kamloops, it's a bit of a different beast.
Yeah.
So it can take its toll over time, like when you're struggling on volunteers, or this year we really struggled to get participants to compete. And there were other factors there. Like, I'm not saying it's one thing for certain, but it also is kind of like a boot in the arse to me. It's like, okay, it's time to change again.
Yeah.
And what I keep recognizing is the training opportunity, and this goes back to our conversation about the ISA conference. As far as operation opportunities for training, they're few and far between right now. They're expensive, the ones that are out there. Not saying those expensive options aren't quality training. That is the case. It's high quality of training. It's intensive, but I just keep going back to this idea. Like the workshop's been a huge hit the past 2 years. We've had over 50 attendees both times. With we haven't invested a ton of energy into promotion like we have with the climbing competition. And it's fun to do, and it's easy to get people to come present because they like what they're doing. Like, people are engaged, and it's a fun atmosphere, right? So we want to expand on that, and we want to take it to the Canopy. So arbor camps and arbor workshops have worked everywhere they've been delivered. We haven't really done one in BC, so we're gonna do one in BC. And the climbing competition will be rolled into a single event. This is just kind of it's an idea.
Spitballing.
It's an idea, yeah.
I like what you're saying.
There'll be one event, and I think a big people. Yeah. No, it'll be probably like a work climb type thing, event, yeah. Something really fun. But the goal is, I think a lot of people are having hang-ups with competition now. Going back to this year's event in Chilliwack, we've unfortunately, it ended up that we were timed the same day or the same weekend as the PNW, or not the PNW, but the Puget Sound Justina's event, which sucked. And then there was a couple of weddings that knocked out a bunch of arborists, yourself included. And,
yep.
So that was a setback, but I know there's way more climbers than that here that are totally capable of competing. And I think that I've witnessed it. I know people really feel pressure, even though it's a relatively fun event with like it's not the championship of the universe, right?
But I emailed you about, like, I don't know, because I knew that I think you were felt a little deflated after the competition just because of the lack of people that had signed up. But I felt that because of those different series of events that were happening on the same weekend, that was why it hadn't filled up like it would usually fill up. I don't think.
Oh, there's no question.
I certainly don't think it was any kind of result on maybe the previous year's competition that had like the feeling that, oh, I'm not going to attend that one. And those people that you feel like could compete, that's very true, but those are the people that may feel that, oh, I don't want to compete because of like their own anxieties or issues.
Yeah, and I think we can include them. That's where I'm at. I think the people that we lost were lifers of our event, and they're important, quite obviously, but equally important is drawing new people into the experience. And if we're not successful in doing that, then we need to change. And I think one way we can do that is have one event at the end. You have all day to warm up to your colleagues, to get comfortable, to get the stoke on. It's like, yeah, go for a spin. There's like nothing at stake, and there's awesome prizes, you know. We can do that easily, but I need to shake it up, because we're not succeeding at getting new people into the program to the extent that our program is sustainable.
Yeah. So when you say like an ARB camp type thing, what specifically are you thinking?
I was hoping you were going to put in an abstract. What I'm thinking is we already have the tools and the know-how to get venues, to get trees, and to be able to climb in them, and to provide training in them. That infrastructure already exists. We have a huge chest of gear that we've accumulated over the years. So a lot of the parts needed to put on a presentation where people are actually participating in the crown as well, it's all ready to roll. The idea is we have all this talent in the province. I mean, I can name like a dozen people probably that have it instructing past, are instructing now, have done, some pretty big things in industry training that aren't doing anything right now because, one, they're either no longer with a large company where maybe that was a part of their role before, or two, there's just not a lot of their regular bread and butter training going on. It only happens a couple times a year type of thing. And a lot of them have, moved into their own companies and they don't have an opportunity to make an impact on a big number of people like they have in the past. So bringing them into the fray, I don't want to be flying people from internationally. Like, we have so much talent that is experienced with the work here, with the species, with the environment, with the people, with the workflow, the clients. That knowledge could be shared and sticking with our goals we've had all along, keep it cheap and make it happen at a time where working people can attend and make it a safe place, lots of competency there, and it's just like a good learning environment. And I think that's what's missing. And it's one way I know we can do something about it. We have the people in the group, we have the tools and the know-how, as I said, and we can find a venue. And I think maybe that would get people back engaged in the climbing scene through the PNW events, or even through our little mini event at the end of it. But this has been a lot of after. It's just as far as my being deflated after the event. But I talked with a lot of people that I would generally have these sorts of conversations with, and like, well, what do you think? Trying to put my finger on it. It's rough, but how do we move forward from this? And ultimately, you invest all this energy, and you don't have to do it, right? You invest all this time and energy, and everybody else involved in that machine too. It's frustrating, but I've been doing events for so long, and I kind of live for that. Like, when it does fail, it's like, go back to the drawing board. It's not like I'm done with this. It's just like, go back to the drawing board, because it's about bringing people together. It's been so vital for my development in the community. Like, I've just been enriched time and time again, whether it's through conference or climbing competitions. Like listening to your the last podcast you both did, just talking about all the benefits of on the people and community side of things and opportunities opening up. So it's important that we continue to do that and reach out to a group that maybe isn't being targeted anymore by the ISA, whether it's their intent or not. Maybe that's a way we can contribute to get them into the ISA program and encourage participation.
I will say, good turnout females at the BTCCC this year.
Absolutely.
Was that 5 or 6?
5. Yeah, we've worked hard.
Yeah. That was
from
cool.
From when we started, just putting off that, making it well known that we're a fun event, and we try and keep it low pressure. And we did things like keeping all the girls together.
Yeah. Little things.
And they love it.
Yeah, I think we made great inroads in seeing that at the PNWs. The more TCC official ISA comps, you have these heavy hitters, maybe 1 to 3, right?
Yeah.
But then it was that seemed like a pack of females that were enjoying themselves and really learning at the same time. And that's what I think. I wish I got involved when I was learning. I did the whole I'm not ready till I was really I don't think I'm ready. And then I inserted myself in 2014. But that's kind of like a wicked teaching training ground and meet people and build all that. Like the school I was saying, how that built so much confidence at school. I feel like whatever venue you're putting on, but it worked for that group of 5 females, and the Aero Canopy could do the same thing. But the BC one is just lower pressures, and I think that's a great feeding ground. And we got to keep that swell going there.
And I think,
and it will.
And that's something we can do to offer our, what we've done and what we're enabled to do now, as far as holding a canopy workshop in a venue that could be like a municipal park in City of Vancouver, City of Victoria, like high profile venues. We can offer that space to women in ARB. And that's it's about providing opportunities, and it's one step forward. It's just like spreading out the roots and building the network.
It's a good sense of community.
So is the idea to have the what you're thinking for the next BC comp, like a kind of a hands-on climbing based training, so that everybody who attends gets some kind of practical climbing?
No.
Type?
Partially, yes. I think if you could imagine something similar to the conference we're attending here at Stanley Park at Bayshore, having a range of opportunities. So yes, climbing could be an opportunity, working on a specific skill. I was hoping you were putting your abstract together there for me.
Loosely.
But yes, climbing, a women's climbing group, a technical rigging, rope angles, work positioning situation, something targeted at high-level arborists, something targeted at arborists that have spent some time in the canopy, but could use a little bit of coaching on specific skills at a couple of stations. Really, it comes down to the imagination of the people I'm hoping to draw out as instructors. Like, you build it, and we'll provide you with what you need for that station to happen. Rather than like 5 climbing competition stations, we have 5 workshop stations, some of them at height, some of them on the ground.
And each station short enough for people to visit each one, or long enough for you decide you go to the one that suits you best, and that's where you're going to learn from for the morning or however long?
What do you think? These are good questions and stuff I've thought about, and putting myself in those shoes as a participant. The situation I find myself in at IUFC, for being a diversity conference, it's like a lot of similar. That's not fair. I mean, they're all very high level and urban forestry focused, so it's tough to choose. I want to attend like 3 of these things at a time. They are very intriguing, so that's a challenge with putting too much. Like, it's almost overly ambitious, and it's overwhelming for me to try and see what I want to see. It's tough to make those choices. So
well, maybe if there were going to be like five or six things going on, they could be timed that you could make two or three of them, because if you're aiming at various skill sets, maybe if you're more advanced, you don't need to attend a lower aim, like something aimed at something with lower experience. But then you could also attend something about, so you could maybe have like two versions of rigging, one more technical, one basic, same for climbing. I don't know, something along those lines.
I feel like he should like get on the planning committee.
Just start jotting his notes down.
I think he's already signed himself up. It's
pretty
great.
much, yeah.
But this is the fun of it. It's since we exited the ITCC format in 2013, it was about creativity and just ability to be flexible with the changes. You know, we can respond much more quickly than a big machine like the ISA to trends in our region, and that's what we're doing here. And it's about everybody that collaborates in this process. Like the amount of people I've already consulted with before sharing this, like this is the first time I've really gone public with the idea.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful for those conversations, because you know we're communicating and we're gonna make it better for everybody in our community.
Yeah. It's good to stay like you're obviously really paying attention to what's happening and adapting to those changes, right? And that's our community saying it. You're just responding and probably on point. That's perfect. It's cool.
Yeah, and I don't want to ruffle any feathers over the deal with, like, it's nothing against competition. I feel like this year was like peak competition. There was so much stuff on the calendar, so many outlets for you to go and climb at, and I don't feel like that's going away. Mm-hmm. And maybe we go back to that. You know, maybe this idea is a complete flop. Maybe. Yeah, who knows?
You don't find out by running it, but it doesn't sound like a flop. I like it. I like the workshop idea, and yeah, obviously that presented some logistics, but the education and the climbing and the camaraderie and it all still happens at a Canopy workshop, and that's what we're all wanting. Mm-hmm. I don't think people want to go and be the best. People like to compete and show their best, but that venue still exists, and it will exist multiple times through the summer, next summer. So this is just another opportunity it's about the experience, networking, passing the torch of knowledge.
The enjoyment you get from learning as well. And if like you say, the competition element is at the end of the day, everybody has that to look forward to as part of competition, but then they kind of relax and learn and network with people during the day and have a good time, and maybe do a little bit of climbing if that's a part of it, to just, I don't know, get familiarized with certain systems that they haven't used before, or to learn something about climbing. And then at the end of the day, everyone runs through a tree that wants to run through a tree. A bit like the event at the first one, that when you changed format, it was like, you've got this amount of time, there's more bells that you can get, just go for broke and see what you can do, kind of thing. Like,
that's cool.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
Thinking outside the box.
Well, it's like I say, other people are doing it, and it's been successful in other areas. And I look to Oz, I look to New Zealand, I look to UK, and where it is happening, it's been a really positive thing for their communities, and it's brought the level of the game up.
Yeah.
And so it's, we'll put our own flavor to it, obviously, but I think the format is a winning ticket, and I don't know why we haven't done it sooner.
This is probably a silly question because of the person that you are, and you know what's going on, but have you applied for like the TCIA grant to help with the cost for people to come down for training or not?
for training for that particular event idea, you mean?
Yeah, because if you the TCIA offer like a grant, so that if you put on anything that is training within the industry, that you can show what the kind of training that you're putting on, they are happy to give you a grant, so that it means that it costs less for people to attend than what it would cost.
I'm aware of the grant, but I never made the connection with our own event. It was more like in the professional training capacity, I guess, but I guess that's what this would be. So it's a good thing we have community to.
That would
maybe that wasn't. Maybe that
Dan
wasn't
has stepped out of the organizing committee to like co-organizer here.
I like it.
Yeah, I thought I was saying something that you would be like, oh yeah, that was I applied for that like 5 years ago.
No, that's what it's all about. It's just, make your contribution that you can, and that's how we've sort of thrived. It's like everybody just throws in their little bit. Like nobody's making money off of this thing, right? Yeah. But if we all participate and share our expertise, it just takes things further.
For sure.
Alrighty, let's wrap it up, shall we?
Yeah,
it's been a good chat.
Damn straight.
Yeah, thanks very much for agreeing to do this, and
it's great you're here. From the main
pleasure.
Yeah. I feel bad that I never actually give you a proper introduction, because I was going to like talk about all the things that you've done and your job titles and everything, but we just got straight into it. So
dove in.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Have him back.
And I'm sure there's like another 5 hours of stuff to talk about, so we'll definitely do it again.
Yeah, we'll just keep talking,
Right.
just off the record. Yeah, the beer is gone, so
Yeah.
it must be over.
It's been fun.
Yeah, that beer's been
Thanks,
staring at me the whole night, and it was like my favourite beer that I used to drink. So
It's not too hard, is it?
I'm the worst.
Alright.
I agree.
Yeah, thanks very much, fellas. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it was really
It's
good.
fun. Good chat.